Unforgotten came to an end this week. Alex Jennings' character, whose name was Luke,
Dr. Tim Finch,
was not only the killer of Hayley Reid, but had also killed several other teenage girls over a period of 25 years, something like that.
Yes.
That information came out when they found several items at Tim's house, like a hair scrunchie, a pair of underwear, and was it a necklace or a bracelet or something?
Yeah, they showed it to the other girl's sister and mother, and they said, "Oh, we don't recognise it," didn't they?
And then they ran tests on it, and it came back positive for a different girl who'd gone missing in like '97, and so it then transpired that he was this mass serial killer in a shocking twist that I don't think I saw coming. Luke saw it coming because I told him it happened already.
Full disclosure, we're recording this separately to what you've heard previously in the podcast. I'm going out for the evening and I could be called away at a moment's notice, so I'm just going to give my 2 pence here. Third series of Unforgotten should be commended. Chris Lang's done 3 now with completely different endings. They might have the same format, but they've been completely different, separate shows that you should absolutely watch and enjoy on Netflix or wherever you find them. This third series I've struggled with for reasons I'll go into in a second, but the final episode was more enjoyable for me. I thought the interview scenes where Nicola Walker and Sanjeev Bhaskar's characters worked out, or found out, I should say, that Alex Jennings was this brutal serial killer for young girls, was really compelling. I think where I struggled, and I'm clearly on my own because they're going to stumble over my points in a minute, is the fact that there was just almost too much going on, and I didn't care about enough of it. So I didn't care about the blogger. I didn't care about the son who had mental health problems and was in and out of trouble. I didn't care about Neil Morris's family or characters. I just didn't connect with it. And I think the problem was, and we've said it before, that this series had a lot going for it. As always, Chris Lang packs a lot into the 6 episodes he's given by ITV. I just think for this series, the camera for me was pointing in the wrong place. It was pointing at people I didn't care about, whereas Bronner War and her mother, who were really engaging in this final episode when they found out the truth behind Hayley's disappearance. I just wish we'd got to spend more time with them because I found them a really interesting pairing, and the fact they'd gone through this awful thing and didn't really capitalise on the fact that it was a twin that she'd lost either. I thought that was a missed opportunity. That even though Nicola Walker was fantastic in those interview scenes where she sort of broke down, I don't think enough attention was paid to that. And normally really emotionally connect to things, and I can understand why people behave the way they do in things, but when she broke down in those interviews, of course it was traumatizing to hear that somebody had killed all these girls, but I didn't really foresee the breakdown coming, and I think that was a bit of a mistake. I think obviously her life was falling down around her with her son being in the States and her father moving on, but I don't know, I think there was just too much going on. Some of it good, not enough of it good for me to hold it in as high a stead as the last 2. And also Sanjeev Bhaskar's wife who left years ago just turning up.
Could have got rid of that and it wouldn't have made a difference.
I wondered where Matt was, and then he just broke up with Geeta all of a sudden.
Geeta. I think they wanted to give Sanjeev something more to do, because I think in the first 2 series was just sidekick. You had some things about him going off for a date and things like that, and obviously he found a woman.
The thing that I think you could have done with Sanjeev that you couldn't do with Nicola Walker's character was he's got 2 daughters. You could have had more empathy on his side of what this guy had done to women.
That's a very good point that I hadn't considered before. The problem maybe doesn't lie with Chris Lang and the Unforgotten team. Maybe this is an example of a writer wanting to tell an open and vast story, but only being given 6 hours of TV to tell it in. And I think that is a problem we're coming up against time and time again.
I personally think it sort of pulled itself back in the last 2 episodes. I know you're not saying it's bad, but you weren't engaged with it. I don't think it was as good as certainly the last series, which I think was excellent. The first series, I think if you look back, it's probably on a par with the first series. I mean, the story, the main sort of core story has been very well told. The focus occasionally, I think, may have been a little bit misplaced. Personally, for me, I think James Fleet was the character who, if you took his story away, I don't think you would have missed it, really.
Yeah.
I think of the four, because you needed the TV host with the son, because there was obviously that was the original thought that he'd done it, but he'd hit a deer. There was the stuff with Neil Morrissey breaking into the church, that you needed those small red herrings. I think it was reaching with the stuff with the credit card paying for this sort of awful stuff on the internet that then had led him to have this breakdown. And the stuff with the Syrian refugee woman, which was just, fluff, really. You could have then put the family in Haley's family and had that as the fourth strand.
I personally know I would have enjoyed that more.
Yeah, that would have been what... I mean, I know this is me saying this, but this is what I would have done. Because if you remember in Series 2, you did have the family of the victim who turned out to be quite a nasty piece of work. Yeah, and that sort of turnaround and the effect it had on his family, like 25 years after his death. And it would be interesting to watch this grieving family. And I think, as you said last week, Luke, that Bronner War gave your favourite performance in that scene in the hotel room.
Really did.
Again, in this last episode, where her and her mum are travelling down to London on the train and talking about them, and moving now that they found out what happened to Haley and things like that. And I would like to spend more time with these characters and. The Haley's boyfriend, that I don't even understand why he brought that element into it. I had no, he had about 2 scenes where people found, and as you said, like the blogger, that was just like a plot device for a reason why Neil Morrissey would get stabbed and killed, because they saw it on, even though they could have easily have seen it on the news.
Yeah,
I still think this was a solid crime series. It kept my interest throughout the 6 episodes. Alex Jennings' sort of turn to complete sort of psychopath was really well executed. I thought Nicola Walker's sort of body language and her sort of shaking as more and more of these revelations came out was excellent, and her sort of just having almost like a mini breakdown herself. When her dad comes in and she decides to have this time off work.
That was a hard scene to watch.
Yeah, and I think she's been in this series with portraying this woman who just sort of has got no one. His sons have flown the coop, her dad's spending all this time with a new woman, and she's just there. Sanjeev Bhaskar's got a new woman, and there she is just on her own and having to deal with all this really dark stuff, because this is the darkest of the 3 stories. I mean, they have all been quite, unsolved murders, but this being like a teenage girl, and obviously the stuff that come out of it, I think this has been the darkest thing she's had to deal with. And there was a line in it, and I think they should have delved into that more, about don't mess it up like you did the last case, where obviously they never arrested anyone because she found out what happened and let everyone go. And I read something somewhere which made me believe that they would, or it might have been Luke's interview you had with Chris Lang.
They kept saying that it was playing on their mind, but I don't think, obviously we're really into Unforgotten. We remember it, really clearly, really fondly. But I don't think it was there enough in the presence of this third series.
They mentioned it
for an audience who've seen a lot of TV.
The only scene I remember them bringing it up in is when she went to see the commissioner after she left the file in the cafe, and she said, "Don't screw this up like you did the whatever the character's surname was." Case
to be fair, it's a difficult balancing act. If you're rebooting a show every year with the same core police but a different set of suspects, you can either introduce that to a new audience who don't have to worry who the characters are, or you can carry on as if everyone's seen the previous series. And I don't think they quite know what to do with Unforgotten, whether they want to reboot it every year or not.
I don't think we're being overly critical. We all still love the series. I feel like it's small bits we're picking up on, though.
I think Luke holds it to such a high standard, and maybe we all do, but I think this series hasn't been as engaged, and probably, if you're honest, hasn't stuck in the mind, apart from that last episode, which really did for me. Hasn't stuck in the mind as much, but I think that last episode will stay with me.